Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. This is So What with Sulky of America. Thanks for joining me today. As you know, this is our Facebook Live series where we get to connect with each other. So please feel free to drop your comments below. Ask me your questions about projects, about sewing, about quilting, about Sulky products, anything that you need a little bit of help with today, and I will be happy to answer. Today we're having a great giveaway as well for those of you who like, share, comment, and otherwise just engage with our post today. I will be giving away a brand new 6-pack of Sulky thread. This 6-pack is called the Pandemic Patch Palette, and it comes with a free embroidery design to create the patches that I'm going to go over with you today. So I'll give you a little bit of a overview on what the patches look like here. And bear with me a minute to make sure that I can find the correct image. That is not it. There we go. So that is our pandemic palette, and aptly named, it is a little badge that you would create for yourself to say, yes, I sewed masks, I participated in that effort, I am proud. And you know, you don't have to be a Girl Scout or a Scout leader to make yourself a cute little badge. You know, this can just be a reminder of these crazy times that we are going through right now. And I did want to mention, you know, this palette comes with 6 spools of thread, like I said, and it's priced at $19.99. Now, if you were going to buy all 6 of those threads individually, it would be more than $25. So it's like getting 1 spool for free at least. And, you know, we wanted to give you this little cute little design with purchase of these threads. You know, you need all 6 of those colors in the design anyway. So in order to make sure you have all of those on hand and you can create as many patches as you want, gift them to your friends. You know, the patches are for the people. Let's get them out to the people. So this is our way of honestly not only, you know, kind of giving back to artists in the community, but also really making a big deal about this mask sewing effort. It has just made me so excited that so many people have come into the world of sewing and gotten back into sewing because of making masks. And I think it's been just a really, really great, I don't know, boost for the sewing industry, but also just for our sanity and for our community to come together and sew these masks and share our stashes and, you know, utilize these great fabrics that we really only have a rectangle of. You know, what a great use to sport it as a mask and to wear it all the time and, you know, get to show off those great fabrics that we have. So the Sewed Masks Pandemic Patch, I did mention, you know, it's a way to give back to artists who at this time, you know, are having a rough go of it. So basically, we reached out to this artist who is creating these patch graphics, and you know, it's just a way to help her out and to kind of give her a little bit of a boost. So there you go. We partnered with her. We created this thread pack. I think you guys will really enjoy making these. And in the past, I've gone over just a really high overview of how to create a machine embroidered patch. And I'm going to go over the step-by-steps with you today in picture form so that you kind of understand how this patch comes together in the hoop of your embroidery machine. It's basically like creating a freestanding applique that you would then go and apply to, you know, a bag, a jean jacket, something like that. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're also going to talk about some other things that make really great gifts, because today is all about appreciation, okay? In times like these, and really all times, we need to be showing our appreciation, feeling the love for people who are doing great things for us and for others. And so, first and foremost, you know, I want to congratulate all of you mask makers out there. I posted about this pandemic patch last Friday, and I said, you know, let me know how many masks you've made. It's an incredible effort. And some of you have made over 3,000 masks. Lots of you have made over 500 masks. I mean, this is no small feat. They do come together rather quickly, but you know, it takes some time to do that assembly line sewing and to make sure that, you know, every last seam is sewn and all of your elastic lasts. And a lot of people are just depleting their stashes of notions and fabric to do this. And it's really a great thing to be able to celebrate and to appreciate. Okay, so someone has asked who's the artist that created the patch design. So her name is Jody Miller, and she's just a really great gal. You know, it was kind of her words that I was quoting to say the patches are for the people. She's made some other designs as well, and I would really like to get those as well. Some of them are really funny, like, for example, shaved my legs, pandemic. So, you know, celebrating the little things as well as the bigger things. Let's celebrate when we shave our legs, right? And let's definitely celebrate that we've sewn masks. So her name's Jody Miller. She's a great person. All right, so that is our giveaway today. So if you like, share, comment, otherwise engage with the post, you will be eligible for our little gifty, and I will be picking the winner tomorrow afternoon. So I want to give people a chance to watch the live video and be able to comment and share and all those good things. So first, we're going to celebrate the mask makers of the world. Then we're going to go into celebrating our teachers. You know, teachers are having a hard time right now and have been ever since the sheltering in place orders came through in March. And, you know, the decision to go back to school or to continue with remote learning, it's not really lying on their shoulders. They're really at the mercy of what is decided. And, you know, I really feel for those teachers in having to just pivot and shift and make things work. And whether your kid's going back into the classroom or continuing remote learning, it's still a really hard thing for teachers out there as well as parents, let's be honest. And to celebrate those teachers, to offer some handmade gifts, to show them the love in the ways that we know how, by, you know, working with our hands and gifting something homemade, I think is a great gesture for such a trying time. So I decided to make a t-shirt design, and I'm going to give it away for free for all of you who want to make it. It's a design that I put on a t-shirt, and I think it's really fun and funny. And, you know, you could create any phrase that you want to celebrate your teacher. You can wear the t-shirt your own self, even if you're not a teacher. And so we're going to be going over t-shirt embroidery, because the last time I talked about it on So What, there were a ton of questions during the video and after that I addressed. So I wanted to go over a little bit more comprehensive, foolproof, if you will, way of embroidering a t-shirt, especially with a lettering design that is not as dense in stitch count. So we will go over that, and I hope that you will get some great ideas for some projects to work on today and as the week progresses. So let's dive in to the patch making tutorial here. For the patch, these are the 6 colors that you get that I was just showing with the palette. And if you're interested in purchasing the palette, as of now, the only way to get that embroidery design is with the purchase of the palette. At sulky.com, we don't have the ability to sell individual embroidery designs yet. So for now, we are packaging them with thread, and that's our way of getting them to the people. That's our way of fulfilling them to you. So like I said, you're going to need these 6 threads for the design anyway, and it might be that you need to replenish your supply on some of these colors. A lot of the colors are pretty basic colors. The red, the red is actually a little bit more of an orangish color. It's hard to see in that photo. And then of course there's a little bit more white, and then all these other fun colors. So at any rate, these are the colors you get with the palette. And to do the freestanding applique and have no trace of stabilizer, we're going to work with Sulky Fabrisolve. That's going to be the fabric or background that we hoop, all right? And then you need a little scrap of fabric. I suggest using a solid color fabric. Whatever fabric you're using is actually the background of the patch. So I chose this purple color. You could make your patch white. You could make your patch gray. You could make your patch whatever you want to make your patch. You can experiment by using a really small scale print even. I used just a mid-weight cotton, not a quilting cotton, but a mid-weight. You could go up to canvas weight for this if you want a sturdier patch, and that would work just fine. So I do recommend that you use an 80-12 titanium organ needle. And the reason that I'm using a titanium needle is because of the application of attaching our patch to something else. And I'm going to show you how to do that through your embroidery machine, as well as just sewing it on with either invisible thread or one of the matching threads from the patch palette. So when you're going through a ton of layers, let's say you made a canvas patch and then you are going to put it on a denim jacket, that titanium needle is super, super strong, and it's going to allow you to go through all of those layers of fabric as well as all of the satin stitching layers of thread. So that's why I recommend that needle. And then this design just fits in your smallest hoop. It'll fit in an 80 by 80 hoop. My smallest hoop is a 120 by 120, so that is what I used. If you do a 120 by 120, you can actually fit 3 patches in your hoop, kind of scatter them a little bit, and you can sew out 3 at the same time. All right, so that's it for materials. So here is our Fabrisolve in the hoop. And I used 2 layers. So I basically just took it off of the roll, folded it in half, and hooped the Fabrisolve. You want to make sure it's taut in the hoop. There are no wrinkles, anything like that. And that's all we're going to hoop, okay? After you have your Fabrisolve in the hoop, you're going to follow the instructions on the design color chart. And there are several steps in the beginning to secure that fabric layer. Like I said, it's really like a freestanding applique because fabric is involved in the design, but very, very heavy in stitches as well. So that first color stitch is your placement stitch for your applique piece. So you could see in the image, we just have this orange circle. It's just a running stitch. Now we know where to place our fabric piece to make sure that our fabric is covering all of those stitches in the circle. If you misalign your fabric just a little bit and the stitches are going beyond it, you're going to have a little hole in your patch. So you want to make sure to choose a fabric square that's large enough for the circle, which, you know, it's just a 2-inch patch, okay? But don't cut your fabric 2-inch square. You need a little bit more room to groove to create your applique. And we all have little scraps like this, am I right? So we can choose different colors for different people, things of that nature. All right, so to attach our fabric piece, we're going to use the KK2000. Okay, this is our temporary spray adhesive. In my opinion, it is the best one on the market. Comes in a smaller can, but it's much fuller than those larger cans that feel like they're so full of air. So you actually get quite a bit of product in this little mighty little can. And like I said, it's temporary. It's air soluble after about 24 hours. So it's just going to dissipate after a while, and you don't have to worry about it gumming up your needle or hurting your machine or anything like that. So I spray my fabric, put my fabric in place over those placement stitches, and then I'm actually repeating my placement stitches to secure my fabric in place. So this would be known as the tacking stitches. And actually, I think this is a little bit out of order. Let me see here. Nope. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Rewind. All right, so you got your tacking stitches. Now, after stitching those tacking stitches, you need to use applique scissors to cut your fabric really close to that stitching line. That ensures that when your satin stitch step stitches around the circle, all those fabric edges are completely covered. So by using applique scissors, this is what applique scissors look like. They have this little duck bill on them, and that allows you to get very, very close to those stitches without cutting through them. So if you don't have a pair of applique scissors, I linked to a pair in the description of today's post, which is also where you can find the full tutorial for how to make this patch. So don't worry about following along, you know, intently. You can go to the blog post and get all the instructions. But at any rate, I linked to a great pair of applique scissors that you can use for this technique. And certainly you can use some smaller embroidery snips, but it's just really difficult to get close to those stitches, like I said, without cutting through them. Some snips like this would work, but it's just going to be really tedious getting around the circle, and you may create some frayed edges. And if you have frayed edges, those are going to stick out beyond your satin stitches, and you'll have a lot of cleanup to do once the patch is complete. Okay, so we've got our circle. It's tacked down with those tacking stitches. And there's our satin stitch outline. So this is actually step 3 of the design. And a lot of patch designs will save this step until the very end. It's kind of like a finishing step. But I put it as step number 3 so that you didn't have to change your thread that last time. That's really all that it is about. If you are going to attach this to an item like a purse flap or a denim collar or something that's really accessible, an area that's accessible under the machine, or under the presser foot rather, you can save this step and do it last and do it while attaching it to your item. And I will show you how that's done in just a moment. But for now, for the purposes of just creating the little freestanding patch, that is step 3 of the design. And someone asked, what are we using in the bobbin? I am using 60 weight Sulky bobbin thread. That's all. That's all she wrote. White bobbin thread. Okay. All right, I want to see if I have any other questions I was not addressing. Okay. I think we might be caught up. Okay. So after we've done step 3, then we get into the fun part of the design, right? All of our little decorative elements. So it's very important that you are clipping your jump threads during the design. So after every thread change, you want to clip your jump threads. And I always do from the right side and the wrong side. Some designs don't need you to clip on the wrong side, especially if it's a very dense, heavy stitch count design. You can leave those jump threads on the wrong side of your design. But something like this patch, I just wanted to make sure that I had less density overall along the fabric areas, if that makes sense. So if I had a bunch of jump threads going from section to section here, it just wouldn't be as smooth, I guess, on the right side. So clip on the right and wrong side all those jump threads before you swap out your thread colors. This becomes particularly important when you are sewing out all the little polka dots on the mask, because if you don't clip those jump threads, they're going to get caught underneath some of the polka dots and underneath some of the other jump threads, and it becomes really, really difficult to clip them away or get rid of them as you progress through the design. Okay, so removing the stabilizer. Excuse me a moment. It's getting a runny nose. Okay. All these lights in the morning. Okay, removing the stabilizer. So when the design is complete, remove the hoop from the machine. And the great thing about Fabrisolvy is it is totally water soluble. It's going to disappear completely, leaving you with just this little freestanding design. So what I like to do is, while it is still hooped, I take a wet cotton swab and I dab it around the perimeter of the patch until it is free. Then I take it and rinse the whole thing under running water until it's removed from the wrong side. Then it's really important to dry it flat. Okay, so I'll take a towel and kind of put it in between two layers of towel and really get all that water out and let it dry that way flat. You can even put like a book on top of your towel to make sure it's going to dry flat. So I do this because I don't know, it's easier and cleaner to me than clipping your patch out from the stabilizer. And, you know, then you'll have like a little bit of border of stabilizer. And you could certainly do it that way if you want to just cut it away from the stabilizer. The important thing is to leave as little stabilizer as possible when you go to rinse it out. It just makes your life easier, and it ensures that that stabilization or the stabilizer isn't going to remain in your patch. Unless you want a really stiff patch, you don't have to wash it away entirely, and then it'll have a nice stability to it. But there are so many stitches in this, and it's so small that, as you can see, this has a really nice sort of stiff quality to it. All right, so here I just put it on a messenger bag and machine sewed it in place using some Sulky invisible thread. I love Sulky invisible thread. You could sew right on the inside of those satin stitches, and it looks great. You can also do a zigzag along the outside edge of those satin stitches, and that doesn't compete with the stitching that's already there. So I think it looks great on a messenger bag. If you have a bag that has a flap, it looks really good. Now here it is on a jean jacket. There's a ton of different places you could put this. It could go on the back of a jacket, right here on, you know, the front or the collar. You know, it just looks really great. So I want to go through the technique of adding it to something in the hoop. So if you can rewind with me just a little bit, when I said skip step 3, you can either skip step 3 or you can repeat step 3 in order to attach it really nicely and professional looking to the actual project or ready-made item that you have intended the patch for. So in this case, I repeated step 3, which gave me a very heavy satin stitch outline because, you know, it's going to stitch all those stitches again. And I really like the look of that. It makes it really pronounced on the item. But again, you really need to use that titanium needle because you're going through all those satin stitch edging stitches. You're going through, in this case, a denim. And it's just a lot for that needle to penetrate. So keep that in mind. So if you're working with something a little bit lighter weight and you don't want a heavy, heavy satin stitch outline, skip step 3 and save it for the end. So when you get to the point of needing to apply it to your item, you basically float your item under the hoop while everything's still on the machine. Make sure that the patch is going to end up where you want it on your item. So let's say it is, you know, the bottom corner of your jacket. Slide your bottom corner under the hoop, making sure the patch looks good where it is because you could see through that stabilizer. Then stitch step 3, and you're going to have to kind of hold your jacket in place to get it started. And then when it starts sewing step 3, it's going to sew through all of those layers. Then you'll take your hoop off of the machine. You can use the Q-tip method again to remove that stabilizer, or you can cut the stabilizer, trim it really, really close to those satin stitches, and then remove the stabilizer by rinsing your jacket or item in the water. And it will be attached there super professionally with these very accurate, lovely looking orange stitches. So this is what the back side of the stitch looks like when you apply it that way. You can see my bobbin thread is showing a little bit. It's completely attached to this piece of denim. And then here's what it looks on the right side. I didn't do the Q-tip method here. I just trimmed that Fabri-Solvi really close to the stitches. And you could see the satin stitches are really, really pronounced because I've gone over them 2 times. So now it's attached to that piece of fabric. Super easy. All right. So there are 2 different ways of doing our pandemic patch, or 2 different ways of attaching it rather. So yeah, it's a great method to create other types of patches. If you have any design, you can turn it into a patch by adding an outer border and then adding your satin stitch outline to it. And you can create it just like I went through these how-tos with you, as long as in software you would create your placement stitch as step 1, then your tacking stitch as step 2, and then you can have your satin stitches either as step 3 or save them for the end of the design. And then just put whatever design you want in the center and you've essentially created your own patch. And then sew it out exactly like I just showed you here. You can follow the steps on the blog. There's these photos as well as some others to guide you through the process so you understand. You definitely need software to create all these steps and make sure that everything's going to sew out together nicely. So, okay. Now, these make great gifts. I'm sure you have friends who have been making masks as well as your own self. You know, make one for yourself, make one for all of your friends, join in the mask making brigade, and we'll all sport our patches. It's kind of, you know, a fun little reminder of these times, and hopefully we look back on our jean jacket that has this patch and we can go, remember that time I made 4,000 masks? Oh, goodness. Okay, so I've got a question here from Sharon. She says, could you just apply it to the jacket without making a patch first? You certainly could. You could go through all of those steps and yeah, create it like an applique design. The only thing is that on the wrong side of your jacket, you're going to have all of those bobbin stitches. So the reason I like to add it as the last step or to create it as a patch first is because then on the wrong side of your garment, you really only have that outer circle stitching that's showing, especially something like a denim jacket where, you know, if it's on your collar, you might see the wrong side, or, you know, your jacket gets flipped open and then you would see all of those stitches. So that's the benefit of creating it like a freestanding patch and then applying it afterwards. But certainly if you want to go through all of the steps with your jacket, either the piece in the hoop or secured over the hoop, you could do it that way as well. D says, I know many folks who are still making many masks. Yes, me too. It's a need that we are probably going to need for the foreseeable future. So I think it's just great how the sewing community has come together and really embraced this effort and are really helping each other out and helping out those hospitals and helping out those veterinary, those animal hospitals as well, you know. So many people are in need of the protective equipment, and if a fabric mask is going to protect us even just a little bit, you know, let's go for it. OD also says the KK2000 is great for quilt basting. Yes, indeed. It is so good for a number of different applications. I love it for the freestanding appliques. I really honestly love it for securing anything where I need a temporary fix. I have used the KK2000 for quilt bindings. I will, you know, sew my binding on, and then when you open it up to fold it over around and bind that edge, I will run a spray of KK2000, fold it over, and then when you clip or pin your binding in place, you have that extra security that it is not going anywhere. It makes really nice, crisp, mitered corners when you do that method. So I highly suggest you try it. It's really nice. When you clip your jump stitches, do you clip between letters? Okay, so you can see in my image here, there are some tiny little jump stitches that I did not clip between the W here, between the A in masks, and then there are a couple of letters I did not clip in the word pandemic. You certainly can clip those very carefully. I found that those little tiny stitches did not interfere with the readability of the design, so I left them there. And really my only reason is just extra security that they would not unravel sort of in the future. Like if you're using tiny little clippers, which this is what I recommend for clipping jump threads, sometimes you can get in there a little too aggressively and accidentally clip a different thread. And then, you know, you've got some unraveling or some raveling that will go on with your thread. So to avoid that, sometimes in a really tight area like that, I will leave a tiny little jump stitch. And it gets a little more complicated, or you have to be a little more discerning when you do get to the little polka dots that are on the mask itself. In the design, because those get to be really small jump stitches, and I was very careful to cut all of those because it does interfere with the design. If you've got a jump thread going to the next polka dot that either goes under or interferes with another jump stitch from another polka dot color, and it did muddle the design up a little bit to leave those in. So those tiny jump stitches I did make sure to trim, but as far as the lettering, I was a little more forgiving, I guess you could say. Love your necklace. Thank you, Michelle. So this is one of my sewing necklaces. Can you see it's a sewing machine? If you all know me, you know I love sewing jewelry. I pick it up whenever I see it, and this one is actually available at sulky.com. It's called the Sewing Machine Coin Necklace. So if you like it, you can have one too. And talk about great gift ideas, which is where we are transitioning now, is to some teacher appreciation. So if you know a teacher who loves to sew, this would be a great little gifty to grab for them, to just add to your cart. And also, you can make them something homemade. Now, we do have a great machine embroidery palette for a teacher design, and it has 10 spools of Sulky rayon thread, all in kind of a rainbow array of colors. And unfortunately, for some reason, I did not put the image in the post here. But it comes with a really great cross-stitch machine embroidery design that is in the shape of a hand, and it has all these words that describe a teacher, you know, motivating, mentor, friend, educator, smart, good, all these different words creating this hand, all in these rainbow colors. And it's a really, really great design, and you could attach that, you could make that into a card, you know, you could make that into a notebook cover. We have a great tutorial for that on our blog, and I think that would be a really great thank you teacher gift as well. But I decided to go a little bit fun with an embroidery design and create something that I don't know, I thought would be really fun and funny to have teachers wearing as children are entering classrooms in certain parts of the world. So this is a t-shirt tutorial, and like I said, the design, we're giving away the design for you for free. You can access it through our blog post that I posted at the top of the description of today's live video. And let's see, where is the finished product? Okay, so here's my design. Got sanitizer. I hope I'm not the only one who thinks this is funny. I happen to really enjoy it, especially when you're somebody who's working with a lot of kids. You want to make sure they're washing their hands. So I really quickly created that design using Drawings 10 software. That's the embroidery software that I use. I've used a lot of different brands, and it just happens to be the one that I have right now. I think it's a really user-friendly software program, and there are a lot of fonts to choose from within the program itself. So I just chose one that looked kind of like the Got Milk situation, and I typed out my little saying, I sized it how I wanted, and then I saved it in a bunch of different embroidery file formats. Now, the caveat to the free design today is I'm only able to save it in certain formats. So if you don't have a top-of-the-line machine where, you know, for example, my Husqvarna Viking Epic 2, I can put any design file I want in it, and it will translate it into the VP3 format that I need. Isn't that awesome? It's definitely a benefit of having a top-of-the-line machine, or one of the great benefits. If you do not have that luxury, we will try to help you out at info@sulky.com, but just know that I wanted to get the design in your hands today while I'm talking about it, So I did rush a little bit to get it into the blog post so that you could access it today, but it's only available in a few formats. So if you have a Singer, Viking, Pfaff, I believe there's like one format that a brother will read, but there's no art file in there. And things of that nature. So I apologize in advance, but I did want to get the freebie out there. So if you have a friend who can share a different file with you, if you have software, you can bring it into software and save it into the file that you need. And again, if you're still having issues using it, you can either create your own using built-in fonts on your embroidery screen and just write out "Got Sanitizer" and make your own design. Because I really didn't do anything fancy other than choose the font for it. So I hope that you bear with me. And like I said, if you are unable to use it for your machine format, we'll try to work with you. But also try making the design on your machine screen. I kind of go over how to do that, but everyone's got different software, everyone's got different machines, so it makes it really difficult to do a dedicated tutorial on that. So you can consult your machine manufacturer for specifics on your brand, and they will work through it with you. They have a lot of educators on their staff who want to work with you and make sure you're having the best experience just like we do. So you can reach out to them for how to create it for your particular model. And then, of course, if you have software, you can really just create it yourself using just the text function and then digitize it. So, oh, Tanya is asking, what is the name of the software that you use? Okay, so again, I use Drawings 10. It's by Creative Drawings. You could just Google Creative Drawings, and I believe they have either one or two that are newer than Drawings 10. They're updating it all the time, just like how your computer continually gets updates. The software is continually growing and changing and updating to be even more user-friendly. So just grab up the latest that they have. It's really, like I said, really user-friendly. Okay, so let's go through the t-shirt tutorial because, again, a lot of you have been asking for more tutorials on this, for more explanation on how to embroider t-shirts successfully. I have gone over how to embroider onesies and how to kind of get a onesie in the hoop, and my tunnel of onesie saying went somewhat viral. No, but you're essentially embroidering in a little bit of a tunnel of fabric, and you really, really need to stick with your machine when you're embroidering a t-shirt to make sure that the outside fabric, you know, the wrong side of your shirt, or the back side rather, doesn't get caught in the stitching while you're going along. And you can use clips and things like that. I'll go over with you what I do. The most important thing is that you don't want to stretch your t-shirt during the embroidery or during the prep. So if you have to stretch your shirt quite a bit in order to clip it around the hoop, then you need to choose a smaller hoop, or you need to do something differently. If there's so much stretch, when you pop your hoop out of place to reveal your embroidery, the whole thing is going to be puckered. Okay, you can stabilize it to the 9s and that could still happen. So I just want to put that out there. All right, so for this project, and I do want to say there are tons of ways to embroider a t-shirt successfully. There are tons of different sort of recipes for stabilizer and thread that will give you successful results. So this is really just one of them, and this works with about a medium weight t-shirt, your kind of standard run-of-the-mill t-shirt fabric. Okay, so here I've got my basic t-shirt. I'm using Sulky softnsheer, which is a cutaway lightweight stabilizer. It is not fusible. And I'm also using Sulky Tender Touch. Now that is also a lightweight stabilizer, and that is Fusible, and we're going to use that at the very, very end after everything is complete, and I will tell you why. Okay, so I also showed my thread there. I just used a basic Sulky 40 weight rayon thread for the design. So first things first is to measure and mark for your embroidery design. And again, I have posted a link for this blog post in the description of today's post. So you can get all the directions for placement there. I'm just giving you an overview of what I did here. So a really great way to ensure perfect placement on a t-shirt, because let's face it, that is going to make or break your t-shirt. If it is a little bit askew, or if part of the design's going into one armpit, I mean, tragic. You'll have to redo it. So placement really, really is important. You want to spend most of your time on this project ensuring that your placement is correct. So what you can do is print out a template of your design, place it on the t-shirt where you want it. Maybe you don't want it front and center. You want it on the lower left corner, something like that, depending on the design. Put your template in place on the right side of the shirt and mark your center access points so that you can use your hoop to ensure your perfect placement. So make sure you're using a removable fabric marker and mark those placement lines. You can even pin your template in place until you've got the shirt on the hoop. Leave it there. Then you can double check your placement by checking your needle center point and even by basting around the design in the hoop. Then remove your template and begin your design. So really, really, placement is key here. All right, so once you have marked your placement, you're going to apply the softnsheer using the KK2000. And the reason that we're not using a fusible stabilizer for this is because when embroidery is complete, we want to be sure that we can cut away as much stabilizer as possible, leaving just a little like 1/2 inch border around the stitches. And if we've fused the stabilizer in place, we will not be able to trim it away. And you'll have this shirt front that is bulletproof, or, you know, that does not move around with your body, and the flowiness of your shirt is completely gone. So no fusible, but we're going to do a temporary tacking with the KK2000. All right, so now we've got our softnsheer in place, and we're hooping it. All right, so you're sticking your outer hoop ring underneath inside the layers of your shirt, and then your inner hoop goes on top, centering your design placement marks. All right. Now I have a little bit of a large hoop here. I think this is a 260 by 200 for this design. You could certainly size it smaller for your particular shirt, but I really wanted it to say a big statement. And I think at the tallest letters are about 3 inches on this. I believe it goes across a little bit longer than 10 inches. So if your shirt is smaller, if your shirt front is smaller than those dimensions, you'll definitely want to size down the design, because like I said, you don't want to stretch your fabric to get it in the hoop, okay? All right, so now we've got our hooped shirt front, and here's our tunnel of t-shirt. So once it is secure in the hoop, you'll take the fabric, the back fabric of your shirt, and sort of turn it inside out, kind of, leaving that shirt front open, and you have this like tunnel of fabric around it. You're going to stitch in the middle of that tunnel. So here is where you can use binder clips or even like a big hair clip. Usually I have one of those nearby to clip it to the outer part of your hoop. Just make sure that that doesn't interfere with the movement of the hoop. All right. So you can do a little practice by, clicking it in place, clipping it in some certain areas, and then do a function on your machine to just show you the perimeter of the design where it won't sew anything. It just moves the hoop around so you can see the perimeter of the design. And then you'll know, is anything catching? Do I have anything in the way prior to your stitch out? All right, so we'll get it on the machine. And for this particular design, I used a 7511 embroidery needle. Now, a 7511, some people might say that is not large enough for the 40 weight Sulky rayon thread. It works beautifully for me. I find that depending on the project, I can go from a 7511 to an 8012 to a 9014 and still have a great stitch out with 40 weight rayon. So it really depends to me on the fabric underneath, as long as the thread has enough room to go through the needle without a bunch of friction or flopping around, or tautness rather, or similarly. So I use the 7511 because it's got a smaller point and I'm working with a knit, okay? And I don't want to create large holes or snags or fraying edges. So now I've started the design, and you can see that outer fabric or the backing of the shirt gets really close to the lettering stitches. If you turn your back for 1 minute, some of that fabric could get in your stitching, and then you've really got a problem that you've got to take apart. So just keep in mind, you really need to stick with your machine. Ooh, which brings me to this point. When I digitized this design, I digitized each letter as a separate color change, even though the entire design is in one color. Now, you can get super fancy and switch out your thread colors for each letter. That would be fun. Why not? But the reason that I did this is so that while you are advancing through the design, you can continue to manipulate the fabric that is around the hoop. So you can see when I got to the O, after that G was stitched out, I could move that surrounding fabric a little bit closer, and it was still away from the needle. Now when I get to the T and when I move through to the word sanitize, then the G, the O, and the T are almost all covered in fabric, so that my area for the sanitizer word is free from fabric. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. So in order to just give myself visual cues and to remind myself to stop and adjust that fabric, I made those color stops. So when you're working your way through the design, just know they are all assigned the same color, but like I said, you can choose different colors for each letter, but it's to remind you to stop and readjust the fabric around your shirt. Okay, so here is the back of my design. I cut away some of that softnsheer about 1/4 inch from the edge of my stitches. And I'm going to continue to trim it all the way around the words. And it's important to note that I used a cutaway stabilizer there, and yes, we are keeping that stabilizer behind those words, because over time and when you're washing it and wearing it, you don't want the stitches to kind of pull away from each other or start to distort over time. So having that cutaway stabilizer behind the wording just ensures that they're always going to be stable on your shirt through washing and wearing and all that good stuff. All right, so now we are applying the Sulky Tender Touch. Tender Touch is a fusible, and we're going to put that over the wrong side of the stitching, and it really kind of does two things. One, it gives you a little bit more stabilization over wearing, it kind of seals all those threads, right? So if you got a little close when you were doing your jump stitches or something like that, this is going to put a little sealer on there, and it feels really, really nice. This is going to be a protective barrier between your skin and the back of those embroidery stitches. So this is what you'll see on baby onesies all the time. I have even seen it on performance gear that has been embroidered, you know, commercially. Really, really want this when you're doing t-shirt embroidery wherever the design is placed, because it just feels so nice against the skin. And like I said, gives you another protective barrier against, you know, warping and shifting over time. All right, so tender touch, fuse this to the wrong side of your design. Just cut yourself a rectangle that goes across the entire back of the design. So there's my fuse and stitch that is fused in place and ready to go. And now we have our finished t-shirt. So I think it turned out pretty cute. As you can see, I chose a thread color that is about 2 steps darker than the t-shirt fabric itself. You know, you don't want to match it too much because then it really gets lost on the shirt, but you could certainly go way bigger and just stitch this all in black so that it's really readable and it has a lot more of that whole got milk feel to it. So it's up to you what color you want to choose based on your shirt color and all of those happy little things. So I thought this just made a really cute teacher gift. The other thing, if you don't want to stitch this on a t-shirt, perhaps you don't know what size your teacher would wear, that type of thing, you could make a little wall hanging for their classroom and just put got sanitizer in the center, and then maybe find some fun fabrics and do like a pieced little quilted edge, and they could hang that in their classroom right next to their sanitizer bottles. So I think that would make a really cute little teacher gift too, a little back to school or back to remote learning or back to wherever our children will be learning this fall. So there we have that. I really want to make sure that I am addressing the questions because I have seen a bunch come in about t-shirts. Let's see. What stabilizer did you use on the t-shirt? So for this tutorial, and like I said, there are a ton of different ways to embroider t-shirts and a ton of different recipes, if you will, that work well. So for this, I used the Sulky softnsheer. Sulky softnsheer stabilizer. That is a cutaway stabilizer that is not fusible. Okay, and then we put it in place using the KK2000. And you really need to secure it in place with temporary spray adhesive, because as you turn it right side out, wrong side out, checking your placement, that type of thing, you want to make sure that your stabilizer isn't going anywhere. At the same time, you want to be sure that you can lift it up after embroidery and trim it close to the design. That's why we're not using a fusible. Okay? So Sulky softnsheer. I also use Tender Touch as our protective barrier along the embroidery wrong side. Now, if your t-shirt is a little bit heavier weight, or let's say you started stitching the G and you notice that your knit is shifting a little bit with only that layer of softnsheer, you can use a layer of Sulky Totally Stable. And what you would do is just float it underneath the hoop. While everything's hooped nicely, like I said, float that additional layer of Totally Stable under the hoop, and it just gives your needle and thread something else to go through. It kind of adds to the thread count, if you will, of your t-shirt and gives you a more stable surface to support the embroidery stitches. Now, Totally Stable is actually a tearaway fusible. Did you know that that existed? This is crazy technology. You can fuse it lightly and then tear it away when embroidery is complete. It's a little bit finicky on certain fabrics, so you definitely need to test when you're using this. But for this application, I would not fuse it. Just float it underneath, treat it like a tearaway stabilizer, and then when embroidery is complete, carefully tear that one away, and then you'll cut away your softensheer and complete the embroidery like I showed you. So that's another option if your t-shirt is a little bit, has a different weight than sort of a medium weight standard sort of t-shirt range. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. I think that I elaborated probably a little bit too much. Okay, Dawn is asking, can you get the patch without the thread set? So unfortunately at this time, Sulky is not able to fulfill digital embroidery designs. We really want to bring you guys a lot of great artwork, a lot of great designs, and I promise you, in the very near future, we're going to be able to do that. For now, we're working with some really great artists, some really great established people in the industry to sort of beef up our design offerings and provide them with thread purchases. So with the pandemic patch, we really wanted to get this in the hands of all of you to really celebrate and appreciate your mask making efforts. The design is free. It comes with the purchase of a thread pack. So I do understand that in some people's minds that doesn't make the patch free and this and that. But you know, we're supporting this artist. We compensated her for her efforts making this patch. And we know that you need thread in order to create it. So I hope you understand how all of those things go together. And I know you're really going to love the design. So, and I know a lot of you out there too, you have a lot of thread. You have a lot in stock. I hope that you see the value of also supporting this artist and, you know, grabbing up some more thread that may have been depleted during your mask making efforts, and you know, start making these patches for your friends and for yourself. So okay, let me just make sure. Okay, yes, a lot of people asking about the thread pack. Love the sticky stabilizer. Yeah, and I love the KK2000 for pretty much making any stabilizer into a sticky stabilizer. So, you know, if you happen to run out of, say, Sticky Plus, one of my favorite stabilizers, or the Sticky Fabri-Solvi, you can make things sticky by using the KK2000. So, all right. Oh, Helen, thank you, Sulky. Received my winner gift, assorted needles. Oh, that's so great. So, see, you could be a winner as well, just like Helen. Helen won last week. She won an assortment of all these great organ needles so that she can try out different needle types and sizes. And I hope you have fun with that, Helen. Everybody, you know, just grab a pack of needles while you're on sulky.com getting the rest of your order, because there is nothing worse than working your way through a design and your needle breaks, or you go to switch to embroidery and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I don't have another needle. Nothing is worse. Maybe there are worse things like your bobbin continually running out. All right. Thank you for the t-shirt hooping placement advice. You're welcome. Again, you can get the whole tutorial. I put the post for the blog in the description of today's post. So you're getting the t-shirt how-tos, the Got Sanitizer embroidery design files, and then all the how-tos for how to make a freestanding patch. All of those are linked in today's description of today's post. So you can get all the information. And I'm hearing from a lot of people that they came in really late. Just know that on Facebook, once the live feed ends, there's a little bit of delay, and then it is available as a download on the Sulky Facebook page for, from what I understand, all eternity. So you can definitely start from the beginning if you want to see our great patch tutorial. And I will show you the pandemic patch palette again. You get the 6 spools of Sulky rayon thread, and then with purchase, you get our Sewed Masks pandemic patch design files included for free. So, all right. I just want to go through any, if you have any questions, any more questions, let me know. Let me know. We want to address those. Also, if you have any questions that I did not address or you've thought of something after the fact, you can always email us at info@sulky.com and we will get back to you. You can also get in touch with us via the website at sulky.com if you are perusing all of the products and you have questions or questions as you're going through projects that you are creating. We're happy to help. All right, love tender touch. Me too. It's a great. Oh, okay. Sue is just coming on. Where do I get the designs? She says. Okay, so the Got Sanitizer design is inside of our blog post tutorial on how to embroider t-shirts successfully. And I linked to that in the description of the post. So go on over to the blog and you'll find the design files. And I just want to reiterate, I was only able to save it in a certain amount of formats. I know that's frustrating, but again, I was really trying to get this up and ready for you today. So I saved it in as many formats as I could. If you happen to have embroidery software, you can import one of the formats and then save it in the file that you need. If you have a higher end embroidery machine, you might be able to just use one of those formats and your machine will read it just fine. If you have other issues, again, email us at info@sulky.com and we will try to work with you on making sure that you can use that. But very simple design. You can really just use your built-in machine screen on your embroidery machine and choose a font that's built in. Most embroidery machines have at least 1 or 2 fonts available for you. So choose a font, write out Got Sanitizer. You could put it in the biggest hoop that you have available, depending on your shirt size, and really just honestly create that design all on your own. So those are some other options. All right, thank you, Rita. So again, like, comment, share today's post, and you could win our pandemic patch mini thread palette. So, okay, Jenny says, can you put Sulky invisible thread on the sewing machine? You certainly can. You can treat that just like you would use a traditional polyester thread. Now, if you are using it in the bobbin, which I would recommend for certain things like even just quilting with invisible thread, you can use it in the bobbin. Something like this patch, you might want to use it in the bobbin. You want to wind your bobbin very slowly and only about 1/3 of the way. And that's just going to ensure it doesn't get wound too tight. So just be mindful of that when you're using the invisible thread, but absolutely you can use it in the machine. All right. Thank you, Denise. You have an incredible day as well. Ooh, great question from Lisa. Did you pre-wash the shirt? Yes. I pre-washed the shirt, I dried it, and then I pressed the front so that it was nice and flat. You want to make sure everything is nice and flat and wrinkle-free and the sizing is out of your shirt so that when you are finished and you go to wash it again, there's no puckering or weirdness that goes on once you've added those embroidery stitches. So definitely pre-wash and dry the shirt and then iron it a little bit. How do you use the tender touch? What's the best way? So tender touch is, like I said, this nice permanent cutaway, really soft textured stabilizer. So the best way is you can feel which side is a little bit bumpy, and that's the fusible side. you want the fusible side touching your machine embroidery wrong side, and then apply it with a medium heat iron. You don't want to go too hot, and definitely don't use steam when you are applying it, all right? And if you've never used it before, just take a little square and test it on the type of fabric that you're going to be putting it on. You can test your iron temperature and how much it's adhering and that type of thing before you go applying it to your finished project. Okay. Ooh, another Ellen. Hey, Ellen. Ellen says, thank you. It is my first time here. I came in late. Is this every week? Yes, it is. We do So What every single week, every Tuesday. Sometimes we have them early in the mornings, and sometimes we do them later in the afternoons. Please stay with us. You can also, in your Facebook settings, you can get notified every time we go live. So you'll get a notification pop up, and that'll tell you that we're about to go live, that type of thing. You can also subscribe to our e-newsletter. Go to sulky.com and you can subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll be notified when we're going to go live. And you also get tons of other benefits of being a newsletter subscriber. We do, product giveaways, we do special sales. You'll be notified of our flash sales that are a really, really great deal. You get to be notified of our upcoming webinars first before anyone else, and there are just lots of benefits to joining that newsletter. So, all right, well, I think that I have addressed all the questions. Again, if you have something that I have not addressed, email us at info@sulky.com. Be sure to go back to the description of this post to get all of those links for the things that I talked about today. And be sure to join me next week because I have so much exciting things to talk about with you coming up. So I hope you enjoyed today's post. Get out there and stitch out your Got Sanitizer wall hangings and t-shirts, and I will see you next time.